Imagine if more than 150 people who are supposed to be on your side suddenly tell you they are extremely disappointed and disgusted with you, and then they demand you remove yourself from representing them. Well, that is what happened to one of the leaders of Idaho's Democratic Party. House Minority Leader Ilana Rubel traveled to Israel last week as part of an official trip as a state legislator. When a picture was posted to social media of Representative Rubel, along with a handful of Republican lawmakers, 157 constituents from various districts called Rubel's participation, quote, an Israeli-funded propaganda trip. Rubel told Joe Paris today that isn't the case at all. In fact, she says she went there to ask the same questions those Idahoans likely would have asked themselves.
You can no longer claim to represent Idaho Democrats or the people of this great state, reads a letter signed by 157 Democrats addressed to Democrat and Minority Leader Representative Ilana Rubel. Reaction after Rubel traveled to Israel last week.
In the conflict in Israel and the Middle East, I think it's something that behooves us all to learn about. It's an incredibly important issue. It's a dispute that's been going for thousands of years. It's not something that I'm expert on at all. But this trip offered an opportunity to meet with the president, the prime minister, the foreign minister, the speaker of parliament, to go to the sites of October 7th and really understand what happened there, to kind of understand the unique geopolitical challenges of the area and to ask hard questions. And I am extremely concerned about the death toll in Gaza.
Rubel and some Republican colleagues from Idaho were invited to participate in an event hosting lawmakers from all 50 states. The letter to Rubel described it as an anti-BDS conference, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, something critics of Israel continue to call for. It is a topic that has come up at the State House.
There was one a couple of years ago saying that the state can't do business with anybody that boycotts Israel. Actually, I voted against that bill because I thought that a boycott is a form of free speech that should be protected. So ironically, I actually voted against the Israeli side on that one.
Some people are describing this as an Israeli propaganda trip that has been paid by the Israeli government to have American Jews and American lawmakers come to Israel and say everything's great. Did you find that was the type of environment you were in?
No, I mean, I had a lot of conversations, with people who are actually fervent opponents of the Netanyahu regime. There were certainly moments in public presentations where I felt, and I went going in that there was probably going to be more presentation of the Israeli perspective. But, I'm a Democrat in Idaho. I'm pretty used to hearing, people tell me things that I don't necessarily take at face value. I've sat through untold thousands of hours of people talking about why we should end Medicaid and why we should shut down LGBTQ rights and everything. Just because I hear it doesn't mean that I'm now hopelessly brainwashed and propagandized. But we did hear differing viewpoints. And we actually did have an opportunity to go into the West Bank and meet with some folks of Palestinian heritage there. But I was asking a lot of questions, not just of the leaders, but also, we had opportunity to talk to just, 18-year-old IDF soldiers, just regular Israelis. It was only a 4-day trip, so this was not a comprehensive, PhD course in everything happening in the Middle East. But, there was opportunity to really press back on, the party line, if you will.
The letter to Rubel continues with stats and opinions on the war between Israel and Hamas, leading into a takeaway, quote, to say your actions are a betrayal would be an understatement. You have deeply violated our values, not just as Democrats, but as Americans. We are hurt beyond words and have lost all faith in you as a leader. The dissonance between the principles you proclaim and the actions you have taken allow no path forward for the Idaho Democratic Party and paint no alternative to the moralless, dishonest politics of the right. Rubel says she doesn't regret the trip. It was an opportunity to ask top Israeli leaders, including the president, directly about the very concerns highlighted in the letter.
I got up at the state dinner in front of the cameras and 250 legislators and everything and said, hey, you're losing the world's support because of the civilian death toll in Gaza. This is unacceptable. What are you doing? What is your strategy to try to limit this and protect these innocent civilians? I could not have stayed in Idaho and been able to personally tell the president of Israel, that exactly that message. So I'm very glad I went. I learned an incredible amount. I hope that I was able to deliver some important messages that I couldn't have otherwise delivered.
The letter and some social media comments on the topic heavily criticized this picture of Rubel, planting an Idaho flag on Israeli soil. The soil, Rubel says, is a site honoring victims of the October 7th attack on Israel.
We were planting a tree in honor of the massacre victims. And they had 50 flags up for every state so that every state's delegation, because every state had their delegation there, and every state would then know where to go to plant their tree. So the flag was already there. It was not a flag. They were like, oh, this is where we're supposed to plant our tree. So we didn't bring the flag. We didn't plant the flag. The flag was there. It was to indicate where we were supposed to plant our tree.
Rubel adds that given the opportunity, she would go to Gaza and do the same thing to honor innocent killed in the war. The letter goes on to demand Rubel resign as minority leader and basically tells her not to seek office again.
It felt a little bit extreme that, like, okay, so I wanted to go there and tell the top leaders that I'm concerned about the civilian death tolls, and they're angry that I would even talk to them about the civilian death tolls. It seemed like a fairly fine point on which reasonable minds could differ, maybe, but maybe not a reason to try to throw someone under the bus who's been one of your biggest champions on every other issue for 11 years. So it was disappointing. I hope to have a chance to talk to some of those folks, but I don't think it's the direction we need to go in. I don't think we need to be doing more demonization and more stepping back and more refusal to talk to people.
Rubel also has a strong personal and ancestral tie, leading her to go on this fact-finding trip.
I am one of the very, very few Jewish members. I think there's maybe two of us. There are not a lot of Jewish people in Idaho, and I am the descendant of Holocaust refugees, and I never thought that I would see the day that I would be run out of town on a rail, or people tried to, for trying to go to Israel, and I'd never been to Israel before. Yeah, it's, and initially I was the only one targeted. I mean, there were 5 people on this trip, and for the better part of a week, all of the wrath was targeted against me, and then finally I think there was an op-ed that, threw in the other 4. I do think we need to hear the Israeli side of this. I think we need to obviously hear the Palestinian side of this, but I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to understand Israel's interests in this as well. As I said, right or wrong, they have beliefs and they have this, and we have to take that into account if we're going to find a solution.
In terms of questions about resigning her position as House Minority Leader or not seeking election again, Brian, Rubel tells me this afternoon she does not plan on resigning as Minority Leader, and she does plan on running again.
Okay, and so what I take from that, and you probably take the same thing, is as it is with social media these days, you don't get the whole story from just a post or a picture that you see on social media. You got to get the whole story by learning more about it, asking those questions, and listening to what people have to say. That's kind of what I took from that.
And it's interesting, if you look at the names on the list of the letter that was signed, you'll notice none of her state house colleagues or Democratic Party leaders signed the letter. It's constituents who have the absolute right to voice their opinions on that. But Rubel told me that when they were searching some of these names, she wants to talk with these people and hear their concerns. They found that a chunk of them are Republicans, registered as Republicans. Some of them don't live in Idaho, and some of them, they couldn't find a record of. That doesn't mean that they haven't registered since and they're not available in the database, but it was disappointing for her from different perspectives.
Okay, yeah, good for her to kind of look into that. Thank you very much, Joe.